The notary's pen clicks and I freeze. He's sitting in my living room next to my mother-in-law like he owns the place. His suit's too polished, his smile too stiff. And that leather folder between them, that's the bomb. My name is Rachel Grant, 28 years old. I'm a financial analyst in Seattle, just married a week ago to Jason Whitman, an astrophysicist with a messy desk and a heart of gold. We met at a mutual friend's trivia night, and somehow he convinced me to let down every wall I'd ever built. Now his mother is trying to bulldoze them all in one morning. She smiles, frosty, perfect, terrifying. Sweetheart, she says, Samuel here is just helping us with a bit of paperwork. Paperwork. She showed up unannounced at 10 a.m. on a Saturday, dragging a legal professional into my living room. Jason's out getting groceries. I haven't even had coffee, and I sure as hell didn't agree to any bit of paperwork. What kind of paperwork, I ask, heart thumping behind my ribs. Oh, just a few clarifications. We're family now, and families should be transparent. You know, avoid any future confusion. My skin goes cold. Transparent, she wants to dig. I know what she's after, but she doesn't know what I've been hiding. I inherited 3 apartments when my grandmother passed, quiet, clean rentals in the heart of Capitol Hill. No one in Jason's family knows, not even Jason. And I'd planned to keep it that way. But now the notary slides the folder toward me. Just some standard agreements, he mumbles. Prenuptial addendums mostly. Declarations of assets. Declarations of assets. She leans in. You didn't own any property before marrying Jason, right? My fingers twitch against the cushion. There it is. This isn't paperwork. It's a trap. And if I say the wrong thing right now, I could lose everything. Why now? Why not before the wedding? Why spring this while Jason's gone? And more urgently, how the hell did she find out I play dumb? No, I lived in an apartment before. Nothing in my name, not a lie, just not the whole truth. Her eyes narrow. You're sure I'm sure. I can feel the notary's pen itching to touch that paper, but I don't move. I need Jason here. He'd never let her ambush me like this. He promised we'd make our own decisions, not let anyone interfere. But right now, I'm alone, facing down a shark in pearls with $3 million worth of real estate resting on my silence. What if I sign? And later, she finds out. Would they claim a share, twisted into some family asset? More importantly, is this why she approved the wedding so quickly? Jason's mother had always been overly polished, overly friendly. But now I see the teeth behind the smile. And this little meeting is her first real move. A notary, a surprise, a document designed to bait me into exposing myself. She's testing me. So I test her back. What's the rush, I ask, forcing a grin. Is this some kind of family tradition? She doesn't laugh. No, dear, it's protection. From me, I raise an eyebrow. She sits back, crossing her legs. Let's not get defensive. Too late. The notary coughs. Mrs. Grant, if you just initial here. Mrs. Grant, not Mrs. Whitman. Interesting choice, but I don't move. I reach for the folder, slowly pretending to read. And then the front door opens. Jason walks in with a paper bag of groceries and freezes. What's going on? I glance at him, then back at her. Great question, babe. Care to explain, Margaret? His mother's face doesn't flinch. I hand the folder back to the notary without a single signature. We're not signing anything today. But I know this isn't over, not by a long shot. Because now she's suspicious, and I've just confirmed there's something to be suspicious about. And that's when I realize she's not going to stop. The real question is, how far will she go to find out the truth? Jason doesn't say much after Margaret and the notary leave. He just stares at the front door like it's going to open again, like he's waiting for an apology that will never come. Sorry about that. I say quietly, putting the untouched teacups back into the sink. My hands are trembling. Did you know she was bringing someone? He shakes his head. I thought she was just dropping by. She said she wanted to talk wedding gifts, not ambush us with legal paperwork. I laugh, but it comes out hollow. A prenup as a gift. How thoughtful. Jason sets the grocery bag down harder than necessary. She shouldn't have done that, but I see the question forming in his eyes. Why are you so against signing? What are you hiding? I changed the subject before he can speak. Do you think she suspects something? Jason pauses. She's just intense, controlling. You know how she is. But does he really? She raised him on her own, pushed him through school, through grad programs. She's used to being in control, used to loyalty, used to having a say. And now he's married a woman who keeps things to herself. He doesn't know I inherited real estate, that my grandmother's death came with a private notary, a sealed will, and 3 keys to 3 different buildings across Seattle. Each apartment legally mine, each rented out to tenants who think I'm just some office worker with a sharp email tone and a neat signature. That's the truth I've never told him. And now I can't stop thinking, what if I had? Would he have told her? Would he have insisted we use one of them instead of moving into this condo with his father's name still on the deed? Would it have ruined us before we even began? Jason walks over and wraps his arms around me. I told her not to interfere. He murmurs, I'll talk to her again. Thanks, but I don't feel comforted. I feel watched. And later that night when he's in the shower, I do something I never thought I'd do. I go into my encrypted files, check the rental income, 3 apartments, fully rented, total income $1,300 per month after taxes, my safety net, my quiet power. But suddenly it feels exposed, like there's a spotlight on it. I hear Jason's footsteps behind me and slam the laptop shut. He kisses the back of my neck. You okay? Yeah, you're jumpy. Just tired, just scared, just wondering how much longer I can keep this secret. The next few days are tense. Margaret doesn't call, doesn't text, just silence, which in her case is worse than confrontation. And then, 3 nights later during dinner with Jason's extended family, I notice it. A question. His aunt leans across the table, smiling too widely. Rachel, didn't your grandmother used to own some property in the city? Jason looks up from his plate. I freeze fork midair. She lived in an apartment on East Pine. Rented it, I think. That's a lie. She owned it, but it was the smallest of the 3, the least suspicious. Margaret smiles slightly from the other side of the table. She's watching me like a predator waiting to pounce. She doesn't say anything. Not yet. But I know what's happening. She's spreading the net, whispering, investigating. That smile. It says I'm not done. And suddenly I realize I don't have long. How did she even begin to suspect? Could someone have seen me visiting the properties? A tenant, the realtor? And worse, if she finds out about one, will she find the others? Can she twist this into something legal? She's the kind of woman who knows people, lawyers, accountants, men like Samuel with 2 slick shoes and 2 quiet voices. She could make this ugly. She could tie me up in litigation, claim undisclosed premarital assets, argue Jason's entitled to half. He wouldn't ask for that, but she would. And now the question that haunts me every time I fall asleep beside my husband is this. If she forces me to choose between protecting my inheritance or protecting my marriage, which one will I choose? The listing goes live on Thursday. It's for a modest 1-bedroom unit on Pine and Belmont, one of the 3 apartments my grandmother left me. The current tenant is moving to Portland, and my realtor Greg insists we post it immediately. It'll be gone in a week, he says over the phone. That view of Cal Anderson. It's gold. I nod, pacing my office. Okay, Just, don't include my name anywhere public. He chuckles. You always say that. I got you, Rachel. Your LLC's on the docks. Totally clean. Still a sick feeling twists in my stomach. Because now it's out there again. Visible, searchable, and Margaret. She's not dumb. She's persistent. She knows how to connect dots. That weekend, she makes her move. Jason and I are invited to a casual brunch at her place. Just the three of us, she says. The moment we arrive, I know it's a setup. She's too composed. The table's laid out like a Pinterest ad. Quiche, champagne, her favorite floral dress, and her phone strategically placed next to a printed listing. My listing. Well, she says, sipping slowly, I was helping a friend look for apartments. And guess what? I stumbled on. Jason frowns. What do you mean? She pushes the listing toward me. Recognize this? I glance down. It's the unit on Pine. The photo shows the balcony with the skyline in the background, my grandmother's wind chime still hanging in the corner. I look up. Lots of places look like that. Margaret's smile sharpens. You know what's funny? The owner's listed as a company called R. Witt Capital, LLC. Jason stiffens beside me. My breath catches. She leans in. Is there something you want to tell us, Rachel? This is it. The confrontation I've been dreading. Jason turns to me, confused. Wait, that's your company. I nod slowly. It's complicated. Margaret folds her hands like she's in a boardroom. Try me. I take a deep breath. When my grandmother passed, she left me a few properties. I didn't tell anyone, not because I didn't trust Jason, but because I didn't trust what would happen around him. Jason's mouth opens, closes. How many? 3. He leans back like I slapped him. 3, Margaret laughs. 3, and yet you told us you had nothing? I told you what I was comfortable sharing. It's personal. You're married now? She snaps. Personal doesn't exist. That's called secrecy. Jason holds up a hand. Mom, stop. She glares at both of us. You married into this family, Rachel. We share, we support, we plan together. You hiding this, it's betrayal. Betrayal, I laugh bitterly. This is why I kept quiet, because I knew the moment you found out you'd try to take control. Her eyes narrow. What else are you hiding? Offshore account stocks. A secret child. Jason stands. Enough. The room freezes. I married Rachel, not her balance sheet. If she has money, good. That doesn't change anything between us. Margaret glares at him like he's a traitor. She lied. She protected herself, Jason says calmly. Maybe for good reason. That's when I realize something's shifted. Jason isn't just defending me. He's choosing me. But Margaret, she's not finished. That evening, I receive a text from an unknown number. I know about the other 2. We need to talk. She's not bluffing. I call Greg in a panic. Did you list anything else under my LLC name? No, he says, but Margaret Whitman. She's been calling around, pretending to be your lawyer. My stomach drops. She's trying to expose everything, and I can't help but ask. How much longer before she finds a way to take what's mine? I didn't respond to her text. I couldn't. Not until I knew what she really knew and what she was capable of doing with it. But Margaret didn't wait. 2 days later, she showed up at my office. Yes, my office. She didn't bother with the front desk. Somehow she convinced the receptionist she was my mother, complete with fake tears and urgent family news. She walked straight through the frosted glass doors of Cascade Analytics heels, clicking like a judge walking to the bench. Rachel, she said, arms folded across her pristine blazer. We need to speak now. I glanced at my stunned assistant, then led her into the empty conference room. She dropped a folder on the table. Inside, photos, screenshots of online listings, a copy of the rental agreement from one of my buildings. She leaned forward. You've been hiding not just one, but 3 fully leased apartments generating over 6 figures annually. I said nothing. You own them privately through an LLC, set up before the marriage. Clever, but not clever enough. I clenched my fists under the table. What do you want? Margaret didn't miss a beat. I want to help you manage it. I blinked. Excuse me, I've run businesses. I understand tenants' overhead tax shelters. You have a young child now. Jason told me you're thinking about starting a family. Don't you want to secure a better future? Her smile was soft, sweet, and ice cold. I can help optimize this. We create a family trust, pool our resources, grow our holdings. It becomes part of the Whitman portfolio. There it was, the takeover. I'm not interested, I said flatly. Her expression darkened. Don't be short-sighted. You're already legally exposed. Actually, I'm not. These are premarital assets held under a shielded entity. You know that. She sat back, eyes gleaming. You think you're smarter than me? I stood. No, I just know how to protect what's mine. She didn't argue. She just gathered her papers, stood and whispered as she walked past me. Everyone needs help eventually, and when that day comes, I'll be waiting. I watched her go, hands trembling. But I knew I couldn't leave this unprotected anymore. That night I met with a lawyer, a top-tier estate attorney. We went through everything: titles, dates, LLC paperwork. We need to reinforce your separation of assets, he said. If it ever goes to court, Margaret could argue community contribution, especially if Jason gets pulled in. What about a post-nup, I asked. He nodded slowly. Risky to suggest, but if Jason's on your side, maybe. That same night, I told Jason everything. Every dollar, every deed, every tenant. He was quiet for a long time. I wish you'd told me sooner, he said softly. I was scared. Of her, of this exact situation. He looked up at me. Do you still not trust me? No, I whispered. I do now, but I didn't back then. And I'm sorry. We held each other for a long time. The silence felt like forgiveness, almost. But I couldn't shake the dread, because Margaret had launched a new campaign, one that wasn't legal or direct. She started whispering to Jason's relatives, telling them I was manipulating him, that I had a secret fortune and refused to help the family business. Soon at family dinners, I noticed the shift. Questions turned cold, jokes turned sharp. Jason's cousin cornered me in the hallway. Heard you're sitting on a pile of cash while Uncle Terry's business tanks. I stared at him. It's not charity, it's inheritance, and it's not up for grabs. He smirked. That's not how families work, sweetheart. I wanted to scream, but I just walked away. Jason noticed. Of course he did. She's turning them against you, he said quietly that night. She's trying to force my hand. He hesitated. She said she might sue. My blood ran cold. Sue for what she's talking about: financial deception within the family, saying you married under false pretenses. That's absurd. She knows it, but that doesn't mean she won't try. So I made a decision. The next morning, I rewrote my will, gave power of attorney only to my sister, reinforced the LLC's protections, and froze every joint asset Jason and I shared until we could restructure. I loved him, but I had to protect myself because Margaret had drawn blood, and I wasn't about to bleed out for anyone. But then she escalated. She didn't come for me. She came for our son, and that's when everything snapped. It started with a call from the preschool. Hi, Ms. Grant, the director said, sounding cautious. Just wanted to check, was it your intention for Mrs. Whitman, your son's grandmother, to attend his classes twice this week? I nearly dropped my phone. She did what she's been arriving early, said she had your permission. She brought educational toys, some books. and she's been making suggestions to our staff. I closed my eyes trying to breathe. No, she does not have my permission. That stops now. Understood. We just wanted to clarify. I hung up and stared at the wall. She was using my son to get under my skin, to claim space in our lives. And the worst part, I hadn't seen it coming. Jason was horrified when I told him. She said she was just visiting the classroom. I had no idea she was interfering. She's planting flags, I said bitterly. First our marriage, then my assets, now our son. He nodded, jaw clenched. I'll talk to her. But it didn't stop there. Margaret began leaving gifts at our door, children's books with suspicious notes tucked inside. When Paul's ready for real school, I know just the right private academy. Family trust funds can help little geniuses flourish. It was all code, pressure, strings. She'd even emailed me a document, a proposed education plan, complete with a proposed budget, and a contribution line labeled "From Rachel's Inheritance." I didn't respond, but every time I opened my inbox there was another jab. Why don't you want the best for Paul? You can afford it. Why pretend otherwise? The campaign was spreading. At a dinner with Jason's parents, his aunt turned to me smiling sweetly. So, Rachel, planning to invest any of that fortune into the family business, or just keeping it all under lock and key? I looked across the table at Jason. He was pale. He hadn't known she'd talk to the family, hadn't known she'd leak our private fight into a public scandal. I stood up. I'm done, I said. Everyone froze. Jason tried to pull me back down, but I was already walking away. I didn't go home that night. I went to my sister's. Elizabeth poured wine and said, "You knew this day would come. She's trying to make me the villain." Elizabeth raised an eyebrow. "Then maybe it's time you stopped playing defense." That night I made another decision. If she wanted war, she was getting one. I met with my lawyer again. We drafted a cease and desist, addressed to Margaret Whitman, alleging defamation, emotional interference, and attempted coercion. Was it a bluff, maybe? But the letter was real, and the threat was clear. Jason wasn't thrilled. "You're suing my mother. I'm protecting myself. And Paul. She'll never forgive you. She never intended to." I served her the letter via courier the next morning. She didn't respond. For 2 weeks, silence. Then came the retaliation. She filed a complaint with Child Services. Yes, a formal report, anonymous, but clearly from her, claiming our home was emotionally unstable and that Paul might be neglected due to financial disputes. The investigator showed up at our door at 9 a.m. I was in a robe, Jason still in pajama pants. The shock on his face said everything. "This is insane," I told the woman. But she had to follow protocol, interviews, photos, documentation. 2 days of hell. And when it was over, she left with a kind smile. "You're fine, clearly, but I had to check." Jason sat on the couch afterward, face buried in his hands. "I can't believe she did this. She tried to take my money. That failed, so she tried to take my child." He looked up at me, and for the first time, there was fear in his eyes. Not of me, but of what came next. Because now we both knew this war had no rules. The police never got involved, but something in me snapped that week. I stopped being scared. I stopped waiting. I started preparing. My lawyer and I pulled every thread tight filed official documentation, separating my inheritance from marital property, updated Paul's guardianship terms, and froze any remaining access Margaret might have had to shared assets through Jason. Jason watched me silent. I didn't ask him to approve. I didn't need approval anymore. But one night while he was folding Paul's laundry, he finally spoke. "You really think she'd try to take him? She's already tried. Not with a judge, but with stories, implications, calls to agencies." I looked at him. "She'll twist whatever she has to." Jason stared at the onesie in his hands. "I thought she just wanted control." "She does," I said. Over everything. Then came her apology, handwritten, mailed, on expensive cream stationery. Dear Rachel, perhaps I've gone too far. Let's meet and talk. I'm willing to find common ground for Jason's sake. For Paul's. A trap, obviously. But part of me wanted to go. I needed to look her in the eye. So I met her public cafe broad daylight, my lawyer nearby in another booth. Margaret wore her pearls, always the pearls. She didn't waste time. Rachel? I've been thinking, you're clever, strong, maybe too much so. And I see now that trying to control you was a mistake. I said nothing, but she continued, you must understand I didn't do it for me. I did it for Jason, for Paul. You know how these things go, family legacies, reputation, structure. I leaned in. You reported me to Child Services. A pause. She didn't deny it. You said you'd do anything to protect what was yours, I said. So did I. She sighed dramatically. Rachel, none of this would have happened if you just trusted us from the beginning, and none of this would have happened if you hadn't shown up at my door with a notary. She looked genuinely surprised for a second, like she'd forgotten, or thought I had. You tried to make me sign away what I own. I offered a chance for transparency. I leaned closer. You tried to break me, but you didn't. Margaret's eyes narrowed. I was trying to make you one of us. I was never yours to own. I stood. This conversation is over. But she had one last card. My husband's business is failing, she said. The house may go. He's tired. I'm tired. I froze. She saw it. If there's any humanity in you at all, you won't let us lose everything. You mean I won't let you lose everything? She smiled faintly. It's the same thing. I walked away, but the guilt stayed. Jason and I argued for days. He wanted to help his father, not Margaret his father. She didn't build the business, I said. He did. Maybe I loaned him something privately, but never through her. Jason agreed. I drafted a contract, a clean interest-free loan with property as collateral, a legal wall Margaret couldn't pierce. His father signed it, eyes tired but grateful. Then Margaret found out. She called me screaming, cursed, threatened. You think this makes you better than us? You think he won't choose me over you in the end? I didn't respond because the truth was I wasn't trying to win Jason anymore. I was reclaiming myself. And then suddenly everything changed. Margaret collapsed, massive heart attack. She was in ICU before the sun came up. Jason called me from the hospital panicked. She's asking for you. I stood in our hallway watching Paul sleep in his crib. Then I grabbed my coat. She looked small, hooked up to machines, wires, tubes. Not the woman I feared, not the woman who haunted me, just someone broken. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. I'm sorry, she whispered. I was so afraid you'd take him. Take Jason. Leave me alone. I didn't say anything. I thought money kept people close, she rasped. I thought power protected love. And her hand shook. And I lost everything. I sat beside her. You didn't lose everything, I said. Not yet. And for the first time, Margaret Whitman cried in front of me. Tears of a woman who finally saw the wreckage she'd caused. Tears I never thought I'd see. Tears that told me maybe this war was finally over. Margaret recovered slowly. She was discharged 2 weeks later and moved into a rehabilitation center Jason and I helped fund, yes, using money from my own rental income. No strings, no contracts, no lecture, just a decision. Jason's father visited often, quieter than before, more humbled. He called once just to say, thank you, for not walking away. I didn't respond with a speech. I just said, take care of her. Margaret and I began speaking cautiously like veterans of war circling a ceasefire table. One afternoon, she even said, If you ever want help managing your properties, I can recommend someone trustworthy. I already have someone, I said. She smiled, not with bitterness, with something closer to relief. But peace isn't built in a day, and Margaret, while softened by her illness, was still Margaret. One evening over dinner, she casually remarked, "If Paul gets into Stanford, I expect the trust fund to be unlocked for him." Jason choked on his water. I just laughed, but that was the new version of her interference, suggestive, not invasive. She no longer showed up with notaries or demands. She asked, and I said no, or sometimes yes, because power I'd learned wasn't just about owning something, it was about choosing when and how to share it. And I shared it with Jason on my terms. He and I built a new plan for our family. We put money aside for Paul's future, began designing a new home on a plot of land outside the city. I sold one of the 3 apartments to fund construction, kept the other 2 for security, and most importantly, we stayed united. There were still whispers from the extended family, still jabs, still judgment. She's the wife with the inheritance. She's the reason Margaret changed. But Jason always smiled and said, "She's the reason we have peace." And Margaret, well, she finally understood what love looked like without manipulation. It looked like Jason changing her bandages after surgery, like Paul bringing her homemade cards, like me not abandoning her when I had every reason to. The final piece came 6 months later. Jason and I hosted a gathering to celebrate Paul's 5th birthday. Family only. Margaret showed up in a soft cardigan and brought a small gift, a photo album. Not an expensive one, not a guilt trip, just pictures. Jason as a boy, Paul last Christmas. A page she left blank labeled, "The Future Write Your Story Together." I hugged her. She didn't cry, but her voice cracked when she said, "Thank you for not turning your back." Later that night, after everyone left, Jason and I stood at the edge of the yard, watching Paul run through the grass. "Did you ever think we'd get here?" he asked. "No," I said, "but now I can't imagine it any other way." He looked at me. "You think she's really changed?" "No," I said honestly, "but I have, because now I knew how to set boundaries. Now I knew how to protect what's mine without becoming like her." I kissed him softly, and as Paul laughed in the distance, I whispered to myself, "Thank God I kept quiet that day, because if I hadn't, none of this would have survived. We wouldn't have built a life of our own, and Margaret. She never would have learned that control isn't love and fear isn't family, and that sometimes the best revenge is peace."